So the Airlines Association of Southern Africa is 56 years old. It was formed out of a realization that as a region, the SADC region, Southern Africa Development Community, needed to have a voice for the aviation industry for two reasons. The first reason is we are actually a very complicated and well-advanced commercial aviation sector. But we also have one of the biggest, if not the biggest, general aviation sector on the continent. And the two coexist very well. The confluence comes when we need to get to the regulatory frameworks. Yes. So we could just wake up one morning and we get hit by one regulation that comes in without knowing. That's when we realize, in as much as we are doing well in our operations, commercially, operationally, but we are not doing well in terms of the regulatory framework. That's why we formed the Airlines Association of Southern Africa. So the African Airlines Association is slightly older than AASA. They are, 61 years old. And they were formed simply because there was a realization that Africa did not have a seat at the table at the bigger associations, IATA, for example, ICAO, for example, and other regions like the northern part of the continent and Middle East. They also had their own associations. So we felt that as African Airlines, we also need to have our association. Now, the two of us worked very closely. AFRAA cannot reach some of the stakeholders that we can reach, and we do that on their behalf. AFRAA is recognized as one of the executing partners for the African Union. So we now need to piggyback on them so that whatever we require to be done, we go through AFRAA and we go to the African Union. Okay. So we are here as actual partners of AFRAA.
For you, the last 2 days, what has been the key takeaway points?
I think there have been three key takeaway points for the past 3 days, if not four. The first one was the realization that the industry is getting tired of talking. Witness the lack of the number of CEOs here. I think, to me, that's a realization that they are tired of talking. They are now interested in getting things done. Is this how we show the world that we are serious about African aviation? Out of 48 members, we have 4, at the most 5 airline CEOs in this room. This is the annual gathering of the African Airlines Association. So is it any wonder that other people, other continents don't take us seriously? How can we be proud as Africans to say we have an African Airline Association and we don't attend only one meeting in a year? The second thing, which is more encouraging and more positive, is the realization that the government of Angola has taken the heed of the single Africa air transport market, and they are implementing some of the things that we spoke. And I came here last year in October, and we were part of the single Africa air transport market pilot implementation program. And we spoke about several things, including the opening of their new airport and so forth, and they've done that. And it gives me courage that if we can talk to a government and they can implement, then we can replicate this across the entire continent. The third thing I've noticed also is that there's an interest not only from the aviation people themselves, there's now an interest from stakeholders like development banks, for example. Afrexim Bank is here, and I've met a few other bank representatives that have come to actually assess how they can assist Africa with the funding that is required. That's why I said the four things. The fourth one is the original equipment manufacturers are saying to Africa, we are willing to continue working with you, but you must start paying for this equipment. The banks are now working with these OEMs and coming up with a plan of how we can finance the growth and development of aviation in Africa.
Absolutely, because I walked away after yesterday's session when I heard the numbers in terms of just recently out of IATA, great passenger increase and demand, great cargo increase coming out of Africa, and it seems to be a good steady, rise over the last few months. Almost back to pre-COVID data, which again is very exciting. But then overall, looking at the forecasts coming out of the OEMs in terms of what Africa is going to need versus aircraft, pilots, the demand is significant. So I think it's quite exciting to hear that the banks are wanting to work with OEMs, who are wanting to work with the African airline operators, and there definitely needs to be that cohesion. Yeah. How are you and AFRAA going to help?
So if you remember, there was an announcement that we made yesterday with IATA. Yes. So ourselves, IATA and AFRAA, we have now come to an agreement that we're going to meet 4 times a year. And the first meeting that we're going to have is going to specifically focus on financing. So we are bringing in the banks, African Development Bank, AfraExim Bank. We're bringing 2 other development banks. I can't mention them now because they haven't signed. Yeah, but it's going to be 5 banks that we're bringing on board. Yes. We're going to sit around the table with them and say, this is the financing focus that we have for our region. The following day, the airlines will come in and say, yes, we agree with the projection or the forecast of the financing that we need. You banks, what do you need for us to start seeing the money flowing so that we can actually start seeing aircraft lending due to this program? So that's the first meeting that we're going to have. The second meeting is going to be from a technical point of view. We're going to bring in the service providers, airports, air navigation services, all of those guys into the room and saying we've done a gap analysis of the equipment that we need. Please confirm to us that you also see the same. An example is if you don't have instrument lending systems, what are you going to do about it? The banks will then come and say, if you meet this criteria, we're going to help you to finance this equipment. The third meeting is only us and the airlines. Now talking about the route development. So we are going to do studies with at least 3 analysts, 1 for Southern Africa, 1 for East Africa, and 1 for West and Central Africa. So these studies are now going to be combined and say, once you are agreeing on these numbers or these forecasts, airlines come into the room. Are you going to be able to serve these routes that are underserved, number 1, or the new routes that need to increase frequency and capacity? So the final one is where we are going to bring in the authorities, and I'm sure by then they will be feeling very isolated, left out. So we're going to bring them in and say, this is the work that we've done. Yeah. We are going to be accountable for this, but you are going to be a part of this because you are the policy makers. So we want this policy to change, you want this policy to change, and that is policy standardization. So those are the 4 projects that we're going to work on next year. Ourselves is AASA, IATA, and AFRAA.
So I heard another thing interesting upstairs by AFRAA talking about a procurement, standardized procurement, or getting everybody to procure so you've got the volumes and therefore a better price. You're obviously going to be part of that.
So the procurement comes in, for example, already we are part of the AFRAA fuel project, where because of anti-competition regulations, airlines must get clearance first from their jurisdictions that they can be part of this pool. Okay. So we select a few airports on the continent where we go to them and say, we've got 18 member airlines that buy fuel from you guys, they operate into your airports. You bring the fuel suppliers so that we can negotiate. The airlines are not negotiating, we as associations are negotiating. So we say this is your unit price, the volumes can increase if you reduce the price by a certain amount. Yeah. That benefit goes to the airlines. So we're already doing that. What AFRAA is talking about now is procurement, particularly from an aircraft spare parts point of view. Yeah. Because that's where we are really struggling right now. We don't have the scale. You can imagine some of our airline members only have 2 or 3 aircraft. Yeah. And some have 2 of each, which doesn't give them scale. So we are saying, again, because we want to continue to be competitive, but within the competition regulations, pool your resources and say, if you are going to look at a Boeing 787 undercarriage, for example, what spare parts do you need so that everybody can say, I need 2 of this, I need 2 of that. And then instead of you buying 2, 1, you can buy 20. And suddenly you get economies of scale.
Not only do you get economies of scale, but you also get standardization and harmonization coming through.
I have seen in situations where an airline has got maybe an order for 5 windscreen wipers, 5. And you pay an arm and a leg.
Yes.
Whereas another airline orders 300 of the same unit, and the cost is almost negligible.
If you've got a reduction on the cost of your spares, if you've got a reduction on the cost of your fuel, maybe you can push your profit margins as an airline up slightly. Where's the other big cost area that would have a significant benefit?
So I think, yes, fuel is a big chunk. Airlines vary between 32 and 39% is attributable to fuel, which is a big chunk. So if you manage to get even a 5% reduction, it's significant. The aircraft parts, it's also quite significant. Remember, most of our airlines, if not all of them, either lease or buy these aircraft in foreign currency. And our domestic currencies are very weak. Yes. So even if we get a benefit from better negotiation, the fact that our currencies are still weak means we've got to sell more. So we have actually realized that the best way for the airlines to hedge themselves is to increase the volumes. So because it's a numbers game, the more passengers they have, the better the yield. Yes. So if we reduce the costs and maintain the same fares, we are not going to get as many passengers. So we reduce the costs, we reduce the fares as well. I think there must be a revision of how people are skeptical about aviation on the continent. Philippa, I've heard people say the single Africa air transport market is not going anywhere, and that's so wrong. If they take the simple task of reading the SATAM handbook, they'll be able to see that there are quite a lot of aspects that come with SATAM, number one. Number two, SATAM is actually an instrument for the implementation of the Yamoussoukro decision. And the Yamoussoukro decision simply says, open the skies to African airlines. Yeah. And we can see that already happening. AFRAA told us yesterday, in 1 year, 120 new city pairs. Yes. That's all because of SATAM, which increases fifth freedom operations and so on. So I think our people must stop being skeptical and start being positive. Yeah. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but there's a lot of work that has been done already. And also, if you compare ourselves, 55 countries, yes, we're a complex continent. We are not like Europe where there's only 27 countries. But even they are struggling. They haven't fully implemented the Single Europe Act. And we are still comparing ourselves and saying we're not doing well. I think we're doing well.